Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. A little later in the show, Sam Penix from Pro Football Focus will join us. We'll talk plenty of Browns and Patriots matchup, getting ready to do battle at 1 o'clock down in Foxborough, Massachusetts on Sunday. Some injury updates. Tack McKinley did not practice. He has been ruled out for the game against the Patriots. Myles Garrett, J.C. Tretter, Donovan Peoples-Jones all back on the practice field, trending in the right direction. Still no clarity on Nick Chubb and Demetric Felton trying to get off the COVID-19 restricted list. Patriots' two leading running backs, Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, the rookie, both still in concussion protocol. So both running backs, both backfields, if you will, less than 100% as the Browns get ready for the Patriots. Both sides banged up and still very much in question if they'll have their lead backs. Let's welcome in Doug Lesmerises, columnist from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Doug, how big of a deal is it if you have to rely on D'Ernest Johnson as the lead back for the Browns?
Well, everybody got obviously not everybody. Some people got very excited after what D'Ernest Johnson did on Thursday night against Denver. And that was a potentially season-changing game for Browns to beat the Broncos. And they might not do it without D'Ernest Johnson. So he deserves all the credit in the world for that. But that was a short week. You know, I think a fresh guy on a short week matters. Like he maybe had a little edge because everybody else is trying to, turn around in 4 days. The Broncos are the Broncos. Even though they beat the Cowboys last week. So I don't think it would be great. There's a difference. We've seen the last couple weeks, Kareem Hunt's out and D'Ernest Johnson was not really part of the game plan when Nick Chubb was back. They weren't at all really using him in a significant secondary role while the game was still in the balance. So I think that was a glimpse that, the Browns realized, hey, there's kind of a decent drop off there. And so it's a great story, but I think it would be a significant step down for the Browns' chances, going to New England, even though we have proof that he did the job that he was asked to do in a really effective way against Denver.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of makes you smile a little bit is the Patriots are in the same boat, and they may be forced to use their change of pace backs, Brandon Bolden and J.J. Taylor, as their main running backs, and those are guys that they usually just use to throw the ball to, which may mean they go and dink and dunk with short passes if they don't have Stevenson and Harris available, which is very much in question, much the way the Browns are in question.
Yeah, there's in football these days, there's a lot of ways to run the ball without running the ball, right? You can make a passing game sort of like the running game, throw bubble screens and get some stuff on the edge. We've seen the Browns do some of those like inside jet sweeps to Jarvis Landry when you get a guy in motion. You can try to throw some wrinkles in there. It's just it's not really about, well, that's the thing. The one thing that I would say is what the Browns do running the ball is more fundamental to who they are than I think what the Patriots do. What the Browns do running the ball with their tailbacks is more fundamental to who they are than any other team in the league. So that does make it tougher for the Browns, even if the Patriots are sort of even further down their depth chart. So they're just going to have to find a way to keep that New England defense honest, maybe in a different way that you normally do it when you have Nick Chubb and or Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, fair enough. And the other one, Felton being out. So Chubb and Hunt, we knew Hunt wasn't going to be there. Chubb's not going to be there. Felton's not going to be there now. That kind of takes a piece out of that passing game as well. If you're Kevin Stefanski, what do you build a game plan around when you've got D'Ernest Johnson as your main back? You may have to use Brian Hill as your your backup. I guess Johnny Stanton could get some runs. He looked good in preseason. You're shaking your head now. How do you build a game plan without Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt?
Quick passing game, right? I mean, I think it's a lot of they like that 13 personnel set where they had the 3 tight ends on the field, and they normally do, especially in short yardage situations, they run out of that. So I think you get in a situation where Hooper and Bryant and Njoku are used to being on the field together, and I think you have to throw to those guys a little bit more out of those sets. And this is one of those things where it's fair, even with the shoulder. You might have to ask Baker Mayfield to go win you a game, or you ask the defense to go win you a game. You know, if they can't do what they do best, then you've got to have your other big money, high profile guys find a way to do it. So I do think, I don't know. I don't know that you can replicate what happened against Denver, that you can say, oh no, well, Dearness Johnson, he'll win it. It's like, I just don't know if that will happen again. So you have to ask Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield and JOK and other guys to win it, rather than acting like you're going to actually replace what you normally get in the run game.
So let's talk a little bit about Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's a guy that, you know, his role is going to increase anyway with Odell Beckham Jr. not being here. When we look at what the Browns have done, throws 20-plus yards downfield, 5 targets, 4 catches, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, perfect passer rating, 99.9 Pro Football Focus grade, first in the NFL. Let me ask you this. How important is Donovan Peoples-Jones specifically in this game, because you're not going to have Nick Chubb, you're not going to have Demetric Felton. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. has gone to Los Angeles. Is he an important piece to this offense now?
So he was a primary part of the offense before OBJ left, because the way things shook out, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Jarvis Landry, and Odell Beckham Jr. never played a game together this year, because Odell was out the first 2 games, then Jarvis got hurt in the second game, and then Jarvis came back, and then Jarvis and Odell were back, and then that's right when Donovan Peoples-Jones got hurt, and then he missed 2 games. So you never had all 3 of those guys together. So the result is that when Donovan Peoples-Jones was out there this year, I mean, he's always sort of been like the number 2 receiver. He never was the number 3 receiver, even though I thought coming into this year, it's like, okay, there's one thing to be like, when you're the 3rd guy and defenses aren't really accounting for you as much and whatever. And we saw him when Odell got hurt in the Cincinnati game last year make that play to change last year's season. So I just think it is harder to do the more the defense accounts for you. And I do think it's this backwards thing that I've been trying to work out in my head, that OBJ was always more of a deep threat, which means defenses accounted for him more down the field, which made it less likely that Baker would throw him the ball down the field, and that Donovan Peoples-Jones defenses don't account for him yet as much. So actually the fact that he was less dangerous than Odell Beckham Jr. actually opened up the deep passing game, if you know what I mean. Because even last week, Baker said that 60-yarder, the safety gets pulled down on Njoku's route in the middle of the field, and he's talking about, hey, David is going to draw that attention. And, Donovan Peoples-Jones is sort of not at the point yet where if a safety has a choice on Njoku or DPJ, I think he's going to go to Njoku. If Odell was on the field there, I think he might have gone with Odell and opened it up for Njoku.
Yeah,
it's a lot of circular reason.
No, I get it.
Trap.
Before much longer, though, couple more big plays.
Yes.
Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be the safety's attention is going to be strictly on him.
So as he gets better, and he has gotten better, and he's doing his job at a high level, it almost, in my mind, Dave, in conclusion, it's almost like the better he gets, the less we might see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because teams are going to have to account for him now.
Yeah.
They're going to have a plan. We can't let this guy beat us deep. So maybe, because in the end, what OBJ did here, one of the better things he did was open stuff up for other guys, because he pulled a safety with him. So maybe DPJ starts, the more accomplished he is, the more we get towards that. And all of a sudden, here's Jarvis. All of a sudden, here are the tight ends. Here's little flips to the slack guys, right? I mean, here's Anthony Schwartz running underneath and hitting him on the move. I just don't know. I think Baker still is maybe at the point where, I mean, he took Donovan Peoples-Jones last week because Donovan smoked his dude with the double move and there was no help. So he took the one-on-one matchup. That's what Baker says all the time. They're going to take the one-on-one matchups all over the field. And the better you get, the less often you are in one-on-one matchups, because they're dropping a safety on top of you.
Yeah, one of the things the Browns have to clean up, Kevin Stefanski addressed it earlier, they got to stop with penalties. One of the most penalized teams in the NFL. Here is Joe Woods on the particularly irritating pre-snap penalties.
Totally unacceptable. And we talk to our guys all the time. One of the rules to winning is not beat yourself. And not only those penalties, some of the other penalties we had, it was not good. We addressed that, but it's as simple as seeing the ball and getting lined up. I know the guys were juiced up, because it's division rival, Battle of Ohio, all that stuff. But we have to make sure that we do our job and not put ourselves in those situations.
And Doug, good teams don't have a lot of penalties called on them. It's just kind of the way it is.
I am always okay. I always give like Miles maybe one a game, right? If Miles, like the aggression, because when you play on the edge of aggression, you can't always be like, oh, wow, that's 5 yards. Because it's like, well, then you get the other side of the aggression, that Miles is one of the fastest guys in the league off the ball. And that get off is a part of who he is. And so maybe once a game, if he goes a little quick and he gets an offsides, then like you live with that. But you have to find a way to be aggressive, but not kill yourself with this stuff. But there is some of the stuff, and I know coaches, I get it, no penalties. They don't want any penalties. But if they're aggressive, if they're the right kind of penalties, and there's silly pre-snap stuff, and then there's, I'm trying to attack somebody, and I went a little early or whatever. So I do think you don't want to suck all the aggression out of a great player. And just like some of this, some of the ball in the air stuff, whatever. I mean, all the DPI stuff, the pass interference stuff we see in the league, sometimes if a guy's being aggressive, you got to live with. There's some of it you have to live with. But I agree with what Joe Woods is saying. I think there's been a good chunk of stuff the Browns have been doing lately that isn't particularly aggressive. It's just silly.
Doug Lesmerises, columnist for The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. How much pressure is on Baker Mayfield this week in New England? Plus, odds to win the AFC now. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine. Too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready to face the Patriots. Former Patriots linebacker Rob Ninkovich on how much pressure Baker Mayfield is under without Odell Beckham Jr.
I think there's a lot of pressure on. I think there's been pressure on him all season. He's trying to play for a contract extension. Anytime you're trying to play to be the guy, there's still question marks. If you were going to pay a guy $40 million or $35 million a year, there you go. See, doesn't that hurt a little bit to say? I think you want a quarterback that can throw the football from the pocket with accuracy, and you don't have to rely on the running game. I've been saying it from day one. I want to see more throws from the pocket. You think of any great quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. You throw the ball. Yeah, you warm it up because you see them contract figures. They throw from the pocket. And if you show a defense too early, what do? They make you pay for it. And I understand this. The league now is all about the quarterback, and guys are getting overpaid because even if you're average, teams feel like they need to lock you in for a long time. But I also think on the flip side of it, if you have a roster that is built with a lot of talented people and a great offensive line with great running backs, we saw that with the backup quarterback coming in for the Browns, you can still win football games. So do you tie up all that money for a quarterback that we don't know yet? In the future, we're going to find out, can he be the long-term solution for a team that's really stacked right now?
Hey, Doug, here's my question. and Baker Mayfield is under some pressure. Everybody is. What is the most valuable thing in a quarterback? Is it, my thing is, how do his teammates respond to him, and does he win football games? Is that oversimplifying it?
I mean, I think I think we can get in trouble with like quarterback wins sometimes, right? Because hey, Denzel Ward picked off a pass in the end zone and ran it 99 yards for a touchdown, and Baker Mayfield gets a quarterback win on the sideline, right? So that guy put me to sleep, though. I don't know who that guy is. I guess he played football.
Yeah,
he said he played football.
Patriots.
He played for the Patriots.
Yeah,
that
former
guy
linebacker
stinks on TV. He's terrible on TV. That guy, I don't know. He's got a beard, man. What did he say? He didn't say anything. Does he want Dan Marino? Was that a Dan Marino rant? I want a guy in the pocket. I don't even know what he's talking about, but I do think so. You need a guy. I think I'm almost in agreement with you, Dave. It's just that it's not exactly wins, but I do think you need a guy who can be a player that is the heartbeat of the team, that the team believes in. So I do think that matters, but a lot of that comes from the plays that you make. So that I think that comes out of something else. You need a guy who can make plays when you need them, right? And so that in the key moments to get you over the top, the Browns are clearly at the point where they're as good as a lot of people. And now you get to the get over the top point. And I do think there are more opportunities for Baker Mayfield to be a get him over the top quarterback at times. I think, he's had some game-winning drives. It's not only game-winning drives, right? I mean, it could be a drive in the middle of the second quarter when you need to answer their score, right? But I do think it's not just not turning it over, and it's not just having a chip on your shoulder, right? It's making plays however you have to make them. And it can be just a nice, accurate throw on 2nd and 7 in a window, right? It doesn't have to be spectacular, but that's what it is. And I think he's in that range. I think he could do it more, should do it more. They could use it a little bit more, but I think he's right there. But I mean, like, oh man, I don't know. Hey, I'm just looking for, Johnny Unitas in the pocket. Hey, I got a beard. I'm looking for a guy in the pocket. I don't know. I don't even know what that is.
All right, so here's the question then. This is a game where you don't have Nick Chubb. You don't have Demetric Felton. This is a game where you would think there may be that need for Baker Mayfield to make a couple of plays to win this game. It's an important game. Both teams 5-4. Both of them are fighting for that same spot in the AFC. Is this an opportunity for Baker Mayfield to again lead his team like he did in Cincinnati last week?
No, I think it's a great opportunity, right? And I do think this is, whatever. It's not a make or break game for Baker Mayfield. It's not do or die. It's not determining his future. But this, I do think, is it. This is a great example of it because, fundamentally, the way Kevin Stefanski is going to call the game is going to be similar, but they're not going to get the explosive plays, I don't think. I mean, maybe Dearness Johnson will do it again. Great. But a lot of times with Chubb, you almost assume the explosive play is coming, right? And a lot of times with Hunt, when you get down near the goal line, you think, well, we can lean on him to help us get in. And he's a big part, Kareem Hunt's a big part of the passing game too. So, this is some Stefanski ingenuity, but that ingenuity is going to be about the passing game. And as you said, even Demetric Felton is one of those guys who in the past, right? I mean, he's been a nice wrinkle for them that they've done a little bit with him. That's gone. So, It is a lot of this, I think, is, I don't want to say it's on Baker, but it is absolutely a Baker Mayfield opportunity game. And I do think it is fair to put this pretty high when you do your Baker Mayfield evaluation. What did he do in a moment like this? Because the pass game is all there, right? I mean, this new version of the pass game is there. They just don't have the run game. So that makes it about the QB.
Yeah, and if he can do it against a Bill Belichick defense, there's some style points and some extra points for that, I think. All right, this one was done before last night. It is the odds to win the AFC Pro Football Focus. Titans 29%, Bills 16%, Ravens 11%. That was before they went out and lost to the Dolphins. Browns at 9%. Keep in mind, the Bills are coming off a loss to the Jaguars, and the Tennessee Titans have Adrian Peterson and Dante Foreman as their leading running backs, and Ryan Tannehill didn't practice today. Is the AFC wide open for the Browns? I mean, when you look at it in those terms, certainly seems like, if they get a win this week, you got the Lions. Again, you can't overlook anybody, but, a win this week goes a long way to get them right back in that AFC hunt.
I do think you just got to get in, right? I mean, this is a year, you just got to get in because there's like 12 teams for 7 spots. So you got to get in. And then I think everybody's got a chance because, as you said, the team with the highest percentage doesn't have its best player. So, can the Titans do it without Derrick Henry? Adrian Peterson, maybe, but they aren't who you thought they were. I would almost ask this. I'll ask it of you, Dave, on behalf of the rest of the world. I think if you asked a Browns fan and said, here are your two choices. The Browns look awesome this season, but the Chiefs also look awesome. The Chiefs look as every bit the roadblock that they have been in the AFC and that we all maybe anticipated they would be. Or the Browns maybe aren't quite doing what you thought they would, but they're still right there. But so are the Chiefs, and it's wide open. What would you rather have? I'm not so sure I wouldn't pick this, that the Browns are a little bit down, but everybody's kind of down and weird and losing weird games. So you're in the mix as opposed to like, man, the Browns are going 13-4, but the Chiefs are going 16-1. And how do you beat those guys? How does Cleveland go to Arrowhead and win that game? Which would you prefer, Dave?
You know what? I'm all right with either, and the reason is the way the Browns are going to win is going to be running the football and defense, and that usually plays well against anything. If you can run and play defense, you're going to be in pretty much every game, and the defense has looked significantly better the last couple of weeks.
But that we are in a world where people had questions about the Browns, and there were some teams that you looked at and thought, man, well, that team doesn't have as many questions. And in the last couple of weeks, the Bengals have lost to the Jets, the Bills have lost to the Jaguars, and the Titans and the Ravens have lost to who'd they just lose to last night?
The Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
The Dolphins, yeah.
Right. No, the Jets also beat the Titans. So
right.
The Jets beat the Titans and the Bengals. The Dolphins beat the Ravens. The Jaguars beat the Bills. Like the Browns have lost some games that
right.
everybody would have wished they would have won. They don't have a loss like that.
Right.
They don't lose to the
Correct.
Jaguars.
Allen
lost to the Jaguars.
The Browns have won games that they should have. There hasn't been oh man, what happened there loss. So, Doug, Lesmerises, and I can step aside, take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we will dive a little bit deeper into the Patriots-Browns game. Also talk a little Ohio State Buckeyes. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns getting ready for the Patriots, 1 o'clock Sunday in Foxborough, Massachusetts. So the defensive coordinator, Joe Woods, offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt, on if they expect this to be a grinded-out type of game against the Patriots.
I definitely do. That's a very big front, very large, heavy linebackers, all interchangeable pieces. We've already talked about it. It's going to be a very physical game. That's the style that they play, and we got to be able to match that or exceed it.
They're going to do what they do, and it's going to be a very physical game. They definitely want to establish the run game, and it's really kind of that old Big Ten philosophy: just run it, make them load the box, and then take advantage of them with the play action. That's what they do. That's what they're always going to do. It's not changing.
And Doug, Lesmerises, you would appreciate this. I think when the Browns look in the mirror and the Patriots look in the mirror, they see a lot of each other. I think the Browns' talent level is a little higher than the Patriots.
No, I think that's right. I mean, the best thing about the Patriots is that Tom Brady used to play for them. So, I mean, the one thing we talked about Baker earlier, I think Baker has to be the best quarterback in this game. I don't know that we can walk away from Sunday and be like, well, he's Baker Mayfield. He's no Mac Jones. That would be a problem. I think that Mac Jones, I think, has played well for a rookie, and he distributes the ball. And you saw what he did at Alabama last year. He's a point guard. He gets the ball out. He distributes the ball. So they're going to do some more of that. They're heavy on tight ends. They signed 2 tight ends in the offseason. You know, they like to use that. But I don't know that there's a bunch of dudes on the New England offense that scare you, you know. So I think that's the kind of game that it's going to be fundamentally well executed, that kind of thing. But I don't know where the explosion necessarily comes from the Patriots. And again, the Browns are without some of their explosive guys, but that evens it up a little bit. But yeah, the Browns have more talent than the Patriots. I agree with that.
Yeah, and they're similar styles. So when you look at this, how do you think this one plays out?
I mean, I think so. We haven't talked much yet about JOK, right? I don't know if we got if he's back.
It's still questionable, to be determined.
Like that's a big TBD in my mind, because my appreciation for JOK has grown in his absence. Not that they, it wasn't necessarily a hole blown in the defense. Like they figured it out and covered it up and did okay. But this defense is coming along. And so this is another chance for this defense to try to win a game for a wounded team. And it's just, it's interesting. We've kind of gone back and forth with one side of the ball. There was a time they're trying to win without Denzel Ward, without JOK. The defense has some injuries. Then we went through this with Kareem Hunt and all the OBJ stuff. And now you think the offense is getting back, but now Nick Chubb, that they've kind of had opportunities where they've tried to have to sort of pick each other up, different sides of the ball. But I do think this is a game where the Browns defense has to make it hard for the Patriots, so that Baker Mayfield's not trying to score 40 with this offense, but he's trying to be efficient, lead a couple touchdown drives, and put him in a good spot.
Yeah, I think they get it done. I do think they end up going into Foxborough and winning a close one. All right, let's talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes. Moved into the 4th spot in the college football playoff, which still has plenty of time to shake out. A lot of games challenging them. When you look at Ohio State, what do you see? What are some keys? And what do you see moving forward?
Yeah, we're really going to find out a lot more about them, because their end of the season here, Purdue, who they play on Saturday, I think is 19th in the poll. Then you get Michigan State and Michigan. They're both top 10 teams. And then if they beat all those teams and get to the Big Ten championship game, you're looking at a Wisconsin team that I think is 20th right now. They don't have a win over a team that's ranked in the playoff rankings right now. So this is like the best teams they're going to face. And they're going to face some NFL guys. Purdue has George Karlaftis, who's going to be a first-round defensive end. David Bell, who is at the very least an all-Big Ten caliber receiver, probably more. Michigan State has a running back in Kenneth Walker III, who's a Heisman candidate. Michigan has a defensive end in Aiden Hutchinson, who is going to be a first-round defensive end. They don't always get that. Like Ohio State often, it's like, oh, Ohio State has NFL guys. Well, who are the NFL guys on the other side? It's like, I don't know. There are some guys lined up here. So especially on the defensive side of the ball, I think there's more to find out about Ohio State. And offensively, the offensive line was awesome through the start of the year. And the last 2 weeks has been a little rougher. And C.J. Stroud, the young quarterback, has really come a long way. But then, threw for 400 last week against Nebraska, but also had some issues. So they're good. They're good. They might be the second most talented team in the country, might have the second highest upside, but we're going to know a lot more about them a month from now than we know now. And they could lose. They could lose one of these next 3. That's on the table because the Big Ten's actually pretty good this year.
Do you feel pretty good about the way Stroud has developed? That's a guy that hadn't taken a meaningful snap, if you will, in a college game and looks to be pretty good.
No, he gets a lot of credit for the reset in the middle of the year, not playing in the Akron game. Resting his shoulder, I think, was also a mental reset for him. And so for a young guy, you can see the growth, very poised, very calm, very in control. A lot of discussion with Ryan Day, the head coach, this week about should he run a little more? Ohio State in the past had used the quarterback in the run game. That's not really what Ryan Day does, but could C.J. Stroud scramble a little more? There's some opportunities there. They had some trouble in the red zone the last couple weeks. Trevion Henderson, their star freshman running back, didn't really get going last week. So you're trying to figure out, they have so much talent, what can maybe open some things up a little bit. So I'm curious to see if C.J. Stroud runs a little bit more on scrambles, maybe keeps it a couple times in the run game on Saturday. It feels like maybe we're leaning that way, but he really has been in control and calm and poised the last month or so, and he's putting up huge stats. So, he's got some good defenses ahead. Purdue tomorrow, a little less so, but Michigan State and Michigan, especially Wisconsin, if they get to the Big Ten championship game, are really going to test him. But you have to appreciate how far he's come this season.
Doug Lesmerises, columnist for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Doug, as always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Make sure you read them, pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Doug Lesmerises. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. Sam Penix from Pro Football Focus joins us. We will be talking more about the Browns getting ready for the Patriots. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Patriots 1 o'clock Sunday in Foxborough, Massachusetts. So Patriots head coach Bill Belichick diagramming and showing why Myles Garrett is such a problem for an offensive line. You can be sure Bill Belichick is telling his defense the same thing.
Here's another look at Garrett against the Bengals. We saw the counter move. The last one was a counter move right here. Now this time, he doesn't counter. He just, chops and runs the corner. And so that's kind of what you're dealing with Garrett is, both moves look the same. And look at his stride length here. It's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he's on the quarterback. I mean, just as fast as he can get there. He's really, really an explosive player, and he can turn that corner quickly. We're going to have to do a good job on these two guys.
Yeah, he's got everything. Speed, power, kind of some wiggle. They move him around. He's inside sometimes. He's super dynamic and plays really, really hard too. So, he's a tremendous player, and he's going to be tough to go against. So it'll be a big challenge for us this weekend.
That's Hunter Henry, the Patriots tight end, talking about Myles Garrett. Let's welcome in Sam Penix from Sports Illustrated and Dog Pound Daily. So, Sam, what about it? Is that an area that the Browns look to exploit Myles Garrett against the Patriots offensive line?
It's going to be a good battle for sure because the Patriots have one of the most underrated lines in the entire league. They've got some really good players on there. And unless you have Colt McCoy and Peyton Hillis leading the offense, you're going to be in for a battle of coaching wits against Bill Belichick. So it's going to be a good test for Joe Woods coming off one of his better performances since he's been in Cleveland. And it'll be interesting to see how he decides to deploy Garrett against that line, because that matchup is going to be really important in determining who wins that game.
The other thing is let's take a look at what Myles Garrett has done. This from Pro Football Focus Browns tweet. 92.3 pass rush grade, first in the NFL. 28% win rate, first in the NFL. 12 sacks, first in the NFL, on a pace for 23, which would be an NFL record. Sam, you know, we kind of take for granted and talk about the holding calls, and he hasn't gotten a strip sack fumble, and Myles Garrett hasn't done this. But he's going out and putting together a heck of a season.
He's been fantastic. I mean, like you said, we take it for granted. Like, we're just used to this. We're used to a Hall of Fame talent playing defensive end. And, you know, it's good to every once in a while just take a step back and admire and appreciate how good of a player he is and how special it is to be able to watch him. And this season is clearly the best he's put up, you know, since he's been in the NFL. And I see no reason why he won't continue to improve moving forward, because he's just that athletic. He's that physically talented. And, you know, the more he continues to develop the finer aspects of his game, his counter moves, his stringing together different pass rush plans, it's just going to be great to see.
So another thing that we want to take a look at, pass rush rates at the edge. This from Seth Walder, ESPN Analytics. And you look at it, and you've got Clowney and Garrett upper right on like way above everybody else. Mac Jones, rookie, now a talented rookie, but not mobile. Is this a game that the Browns try to get after Mac Jones, or is that dangerous given what you're dealing with the minds of Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick calling that offense?
I definitely think those guys are going to try to exploit, you know, the aggressiveness that they think the Browns are going to deploy. But definitely getting pressure on Jones is important. And Clowney and Garrett, McKinley, if he plays, all those defensive ends, those defensive linemen, they're going to have the added motivation to go after Jones because of what he did to Brian Burns last week. You know, that's not going to go unnoticed. That's not going to go unpunished. You know, whether it's right or not, it's just a fact. That's how players in the NFL are. And Jones should probably watch his back.
All right. What the Browns have been able to do against the Bengals seemed like they were more aggressive and playing tighter against a really explosive wide receiving core. I think when you look at the Bengals wide receiving core, you look at the Patriots wide receiving core, Bengals significantly more explosive. They were aggressive. The Browns were. Is that a one-time thing, game plan specific, or do you think that was kind of a tweak that Joe Woods made during that 10-day mini bye they were referring it to between the Thursday and the following Sunday game?
Well, I certainly hope it's an adjustment that's going to stay with them for the rest of the season, because that's where the skill set of their corners best fits, is playing tight man. Maybe not necessarily press man every snap, but tight man, because they're athletic, they're twitchy, and they like to be playing near the receiver. And that just helps out the defensive line more, because it shortens the amount of time that the quarterback is able to stay in the pocket and make his reads, because he has to make those pinpoint throws in those tight windows. And once you have your secondary and your defensive line working in sync with each other, that's when your defense can really take the next step. And I think we definitely began to see that a little bit against Cincinnati.
Yeah, I would agree. That was an outstanding performance by the secondary. To illustrate what you just said about their secondary and the skill set, most forced incompletions from cornerbacks, this is from Pro Football Focus Browns, Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome are tied for 5th in the NFL. Browns are only team with two top fives, and those are the signs of lockdown corners. But that kind of illustrates how good they are in coverage and what you can do with Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome.
Right, and those guys have missed games, so you know, being that high up in the rankings is all the more impressive. And usually, you know, if a corner is getting targeted a ton and is getting a lot of interceptions and pass breakups, it can be a good or a bad thing, because, well, he's being targeted, so the quarterback clearly sees a matchup that he likes. But you can't really pick and choose your battles here within Cleveland because you have two good ones. So it's picking your poison. Which one do you want to attack? And a lot of the times those guys have won their matchups. So it's really nice to see them form that great 1-2 punch. And that's a huge key to getting this defense playing at its highest level.
Sam Penix from Sports Illustrated and Dawg Pound Daily and Arter. Step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We continue talking Browns. We'll get into a little bit about Baker Mayfield and how Sam views this one playing out between the Browns and the Patriots. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
I had to leave my parents. I had to move schools. I don't know anyone here. Everything keeps changing. Why is this happening to me? I'm sure glad you're here.
Change a child's story. There's a child in foster care waiting for a volunteer like you. Learn how you can help at casaforchildren.org.
Browns and Patriots, 1 o'clock Sunday in Foxborough. Battle of 5 and 4 teams, each needing a win. Let's take a look at this Pro Football Focus tweet. There are only 3 quarterbacks with 0 turnover-worthy plays on 20-plus yard throws this season. Justin Herbert, Baker Mayfield, Daniel Jones. Let's welcome back in Sam Penix from Sports Illustrated, Dawg Pound Daily. Sam, what have you seen from Baker Mayfield, both the good and the bad? Some things that he's done well in some areas that maybe if he improves in Brown's offense will be that much further along.
It's been a difficult and interesting season for him, for sure. It's kind of been a lot of bad in between, and then it's been bookended by his 2 best performances of the year in the first game against the Chiefs and then the last game against the Bengals. So I don't want to get too much into a player who's not here anymore, but there's a common denominator in both of those games that wasn't there. So moving forward, we just need to see more of those games like last week, where he was decisive, he was accurate, and he was poised under pressure, and he was making the right read. He's seeing the open guy and being willing to trust his receiver to make a play. And when he's doing that and he's firing on all cylinders, he's as good as anyone else in the game.
That's a fair point. The other thing that I think is really impressive, every time there seems to be a adversity and this team kind of gets pushed, they respond under Kevin Stefanski. I look back to the playoff game against Pittsburgh a year ago. Stefanski can't coach. They find a way to come out and put one on the Steelers. The Thursday night game, you don't have your 2 starting tackles, a game you need to win, or you fall very far behind. They come out and they win with Dearness Johnson and 2 backup tackles. Last week was another one. They had all the drama. They came out and they played well. How impressive is it that when this team needs to, they seem to find that extra gear to get a win?
Well, that's what you have to have that in order to be a good team. I mean, every team is going to go through adversity, and every team's going to have their backs up against the wall at some point, and it's all about, are you going to bend and falter at that point and completely break and your season goes down the drain? or are you going to look yourself in the mirror and make a change and rewrite the script? And I think that's what we've seen this team do time and time again under Stefanski, because they have those quality leaders in the locker room, and they have the guy that they rally around as their head coach. So, that stuff isn't going to go away. They're still going to deal with things. And I don't see any reason to expect them to falter, because they've proven time and time again that they are best under pressure with their backs up against the wall.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, Nick Chubb is not going to be there. He was ruled out earlier today by Kevin Stefanski, as was Demetric Felton. So with no Nick Chubb, who are some of the key matchups on the offensive side of the ball that the Browns need to exploit, find a way to take advantage of to get much-needed win?
So this is going to be a really interesting game for Stefanski's offensive scheme, because he doesn't get to do what he really wants to do, which is pound the ball with his two-headed monster at running back. And now you don't have the full wide receiver room that you were planning on having this season. So it's going to be interesting to see what he decides to do. I think using the tight ends more in the slot, and even lining guys up like Njoku outside is going to be a good idea, because you can take advantage of some of those matchups against the linebackers more, because with how the receiver room is looking right now, you're going to have to start using those tight ends as receivers, because you really don't have another choice, especially with your top running back out.
Yeah, and to your point, Harrison and Njoku move pretty well for tight ends as well. I mean, those are guys that you can create matchup problems against, in that situation. What do you see as a key matchup? I'll give it to you, offense, defense. When you look at this game, what do the Browns need? What matchup do you think the Browns need to win in order to get a win?
I think we need to see the good Baker Mayfield again, first and foremost. As he goes, this team goes. And that's just how it is in the NFL. That's how the quarterback position is. But I really think that those tight ends need to be able to win their matchups against those linebackers. And that's an opportunity for Stefanski to exploit some matchups. And because like we were talking about with Njoku and Harrison Bryant, Njoku especially, he's too big for linebackers and he's too fast and athletic for defensive backs to cover. So really honing in on him and giving him the attention and the targets that he deserves, I think is going to be important to win.
When the other thing is keep in mind, still don't know if the Patriots will have Damian Harris. He's in the concussion protocol, as is Ramondre Stevenson. So the top two ball carriers for the Patriots could very well miss the game as well. Having said all that, how do you see this one playing out? What do you think happens? 5-4, and with the loss of the Ravens to the Dolphins yesterday, AFC's wide open.
Yep. And I think the Browns definitely need to take advantage of that, and I think they realize that for sure. I think in order to win, you need to force Mac Jones to throw the ball downfield, because that is not his strong suit. If you give him time to sit in the pocket, he'll pick you apart underneath all day. But if you can force him to sit in there and have to move the ball downfield, so getting out to an early lead would definitely help with that. Then you can take advantage of your pass rush and your secondary playing at a high level, and I think if they can do those things, they'll end up with a win.
I agree with you. I think Baker Mayfield needs to take care of the ball, something he did very well. Browns were +3 giveaway takeaway. That's Kevin Stefanski talks about all the time. There's a reason football coaches harp on that. That's extra possessions for your offense, and I think Mac Jones is a guy that you can force to turn the ball over. I know he's played well, but I think to your point, if you force him to throw the ball downfield a little bit and get some pressure on him, I think you can turn the ball over a couple times against him. What are your thoughts about the importance of the turnover battle?
Well, I mean, it's extremely difficult to win when you're losing the turnover battle. I mean, that's like the first game that you have to win in order to win the game, right? So there have been games where the Browns have not been very good at that, and that's just how it is. Turnovers are a pretty fluky thing oftentimes, but When you have a gunslinger like Mayfield, who isn't afraid to turn the ball over if he thinks he can make a play, and he thinks he can make just about every throw in the book, it's all about choosing your battles and choosing when to be aggressive. And I think he definitely did a great job of that last week. He made all those tight window throws down the field. And as long as he continues to do that, I think they'll be perfectly fine.
All right, I got to ask you, gut feeling, do you think they get the win that they need in Foxborough? Or do you think the Patriots are able to beat them?
I think they'll be 6-4.
All right.
I think so.
Fair enough. Sam Penix from Sports Illustrated and Dog Pound Daily. Sam, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right, Sam Penix, make sure you read him. Sports Illustrated as well as Dog Pound Daily. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Before we wrap things up for the week, we will hear from the Patriots side of things. Patriots talking Browns when Sports for CLE returns. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Patriots, a battle of 5 and 4 teams, 1 o'clock Sunday, Foxborough, Massachusetts. Like we do every Friday, we'd like to hear what the opposition is thinking, so we're going to go through and hear from some Patriots players and coaches about what they see when they look at the Browns as they get ready for that game on Sunday. Bill Belichick, a noted defensive guru, talked about what he sees with this Browns offense.
Peoples-Jones, Schwartz, a good depth at running back, Mayfield, and then a good line, with Batonio, certainly one of the top guards that we played against, and they're, good across the board there. Coach Stefanski's a very aggressive coach. 18 fourth down snaps this year or something like that, whatever it is. It's a lot of them. Have to be ready to go on every down, every field position. Very good running team. They've really dominated the running game for most of the season, which has let them dominate time of possession and field position and so forth. So that's been a major edge for them. Turned the ball over a lot less than we saw them a few years ago. So a lot different there.
Bill Belichick talked also about how good the Browns' offensive line is. And when you look at it, each of these teams probably sees a lot of the other team when they look in the mirror. Both teams like to be physical. That's kind of the calling card for both the Patriots and the Browns. That is exactly what Bill Belichick has his Patriots expecting in this battle as the Browns and the Patriots meet at 1 o'clock on Sunday.
It's a really good offensive line, yes. Two really good guards, good center, and good tackles. But this is one of those days they're strong. They're strong. They can move you off the ball. You can see that in the Chicago film. It's a do-your-job game. We got to go out there and bring the fight to them. We can't allow them to bring the fight to us. So you know how they say in the trenches, it's all about the first punch. So we have to deliver the first punch and continue to do it every single down and make sure we eliminate all the big plays they have.
It's like hard for me to predict, but I can definitely tell you that these guys are, pretty physical. You have tremendous D linemen, linebackers are playing really physical, defensive backs that are willing to come downhill and fill the run. Really talented guys on the edge, big name guys. So it's a good group all around. Really talented defense, so it'll be a battle.
At the end of the day, the more physical team, the better you can be. So we hang our hats on that. And so if we can do that, and sometimes break a team's will, be physical. but we can't let our spirits be broken by another physical team.
So to sum up, the Patriots are expecting a physical game with the Browns, and that's probably a safe bet. Both teams like to run the football. Whoever can do that more effectively will have the leg up. Bill Belichick talked about what he sees from this Browns defense, and you can be sure what you hear from the coach is what he's telling his players as well.
You know, defensively, they've held over half their teams to less than 16 points. You know, 2 guys on the edge. Hard to imagine them being better than what we saw last week, but they probably are. You know, Garrett's about as good as they get. And Clowney's, we know what he is. So it starts there. You know, they really do a good job defensively. You know, Coach Woods has a very disruptive defense, and you know, at all 3 levels, really. You know, the front, secondary, obviously Ward. So they're hard to, you know, they create a lot of problems on defense, put it that way.
You know, all 3 levels, they have really good players. I mean, obviously their front is, you know, where it starts, and, you know, they have a guy that's, you know, leading the league in sacks and, you know, is a stud and, you know, a really good player. So, you know, someone we're definitely always going to have to pay attention to. You know, they have good linebackers with a lot of speed, can fly around, and then, you know, their corners are really good, same with the safeties. You know, as a team defense, they have a lot of speed, so, you know, they fly around, they're fast, so, you know, we're going to have to be ready to play. We got definitely a big ask upon ourselves offensively going against them.
Again, both teams 5-4. Browns desperately need that one. They get back to 6-4 with the Ravens' loss yesterday. They're just a game out of first place in the AFC North with 2 coming up against the Ravens in a couple of weeks. So a huge one for the Browns. Sunday, 1 o'clock at Foxborough, Massachusetts. Each week, the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students from all across Ohio. This week, we head to North Ridgeville High School, where we meet Malachi Abels, a sophomore who is a leader both in the classroom as well as in the community. Malachi Abels from North Ridgeville, this week's Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Shining Star. Leadership can take on many different styles, shapes, and forms. Over at North Ridgeville High School, sophomore Malachi Abels is a leader for the Rangers in the band room.
He is such an outstanding, positive student to not only our band, but our whole entire school. For marching band, we have about a 120-piece band, and as we walk out or walk in, he's there holding the door for every single person, giving them positive encouragement. If you ask him how his day is, even if it's a horrible day, he'll say, it's a day, or it's, you know, he's always positive.
Malachi plays trombone in the band. Back in 5th grade, when he was deciding on which instrument to pick up, the trombone was not his first choice.
My music teacher asked us if we wanted to play an instrument. There was like a sign-up sheet. I wanted to play the trumpet because that was like my favorite instrument for some reason. And then if I didn't get the trumpet, I'd go with the flute. And then we tried out the mouthpieces. Apparently, I had a better chance of playing a trombone than a trumpet. I was like 50-50 on the flute. But I wanted to do an instrument I was really good at, and the trombone seemed to be the greatest.
He leads by example. So when I'm on the podium, when we're directing, I'll say, oh, low brass, I need more of this. And immediately Malachi says that he understands whether it's the nodding of the head, and then tries his best to perform it.
Although on the soft-spoken side, Malachi is well-liked and seems to always try to do the right thing.
He is he's one of those leads by example students, and that's amazing because that impacts our band and our school so much. Students see him, students see how great he's doing, those positive comments he's giving and coming back, and they're like, well, I want to be like Malachi too.
Malachi is also a very good student and involved in community service with the Boy Scouts, where he serves as a mentor to some of the younger scouts.
We got rid of a bookshelf in St. Pete's. It's the church like right next to us. We replaced it and painted a new one for them. In this one school, I think I don't know where it was. I think it was like in rain. We replaced the swing set / playground they had. It was very tough, but yeah, we did it.
Whether it's in the halls at North Ridgeville High School or in the community, Malachi Abel seems to be able to bring people together and make them feel comfortable. That's most evident in the band room.
I feel like it's just when I just feel like you gotta trust your partners and friends to play what they can do and what you can do. And I think it's just magic how everyone can come together and play a beautiful piece.
We call ourselves like a band family. But when you enter this room or the middle school band room, it's different. It's open, you know, music is weird, and it's also really, really cool where we get to share our feelings. You know, we'll talk about a piece of music, how it impacts us, and you don't get that a lot in some other classes.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com, find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. Well done, Malachi Abels from North Ridgeville High School. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you again back here Monday at 4 o'clock. We will break down that Browns-Patriots game going on Sunday. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock.